Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, Mr. Chair, we're ready to start. We do have 2 council members who are en route, but we can go ahead and start if you're ready.
Who are the council?
Mr. Mitchell is en route and Mr. O'Brien has a meeting that ran over and he will be here when it is done.
Good afternoon. Allow me to welcome you to the Children's Services Council meeting, Governing Council Workshop, here on Monday, October 20th, 2025 at 3 p.m. and here in the Leon County Commission chambers where we started. First, I'd like to acknowledge one of our inaugural Children's Service Council members who's present, Miss Liza McFadden. She remembers when we sat on this dais together, and I am glad to see her with us, as I am glad to see all of you. Before our director comes forward, I'd like for all of our Children's Service Council staff, team, persons who make everything go well, I'd like for all of our team to please stand and be acknowledged for this public meeting, all of our Children's Service Council. And of course, I am delighted to be joined here on the dais by the conscience of the Leon County Commission, Commissioner Carolyn Cummins, also an inaugural member of the Children's Services Council, and our newest member, our community member, Miss Allie Jackson Richards. So without further ado, we're going to have this is the call to order. We've got a simple roll call, 1, 2, 3. And so we'll go straight into our impact report presentation. One of the things that I think is fantastic about our coming together for this conversation, it gives us a chance to let you, our public, our providers, our taxpayers, but everyone who is a part of the Children's Service Council's impact, to know what has been our work these last 5 years and what that has meant to our community. And so without further ado, I'm delighted to bring forth our capable and competent director, Ms. Sika Rose Cream, who will now make our impact report presentation.
Thank you, Chair Jones, and welcome to everyone to this public presentation of the impact report for the Children's Services Council of Leon County for fiscal years 2021 and 20 through 2024. I'd like to acknowledge that we do have 1 council member, Mr. O'Brien, that will join us after a meeting, and we have 2 that are joining us virtually in watch-only capacity, and that is Vice Chair Watts and Treasurer Mitchell. And so with that, we will get started. Next slide. So I think it's always important to start with a financial summary so that it is very clear how the taxpayer funding has been received and how it has been dispersed. So this is a summary of fiscal years 21 through 24. And our total revenue at that time was $23.396 million, broken down as you see. Direct services, program supports, allocated for program continuation for fiscal years 24 through 26, administration, reserves, collection fees, loan service. We received a one-time loan from Leon County government. Thank you very much to get started. And then our fund balance. Of special note is the direct service category where 38% of the funds were spent. Program supports where 3% of the funds were spent, and continuation programming where 36% of the funds were spent. And that was to continue programs that had begun between 24 and 26. It is also of special notes that we have reserves that are accounted for in this budget. This council passed a reserve policy, and it is in accordance with that policy. We do have collection fees as we pay the property appraiser as well as the tax collector for collecting the revenue. And our total admin during that time was 11%, well below what we even allow our community investment partners to charge for their program administration. Next slide. So now we'll take a closer look at specific program investments that made up a total of 77% of the budget from 21 through 24. Our focus is on 4 key investment areas, each playing a vital role in fostering growth and stability. So first, let's look at family well-being. That was funded at $6.3 million, and our investments were and are aimed at supporting parents and caregivers. This means providing resources that stabilize households, improve both physical and mental health, and foster nurturing environments within families and communities. Next, we'll look at youth success with an allocation of more than $6.6 million. These funds were and are used to create safe and supportive environments, enhance academic skills, and offer opportunities for mentoring and workforce readiness. Please remember, it's about setting up our youth for long-term success. Then we have kindergarten readiness, where $4.2 million is invested. These funds ensure children start school healthy and ready to learn through early literacy programs and quality childcare. It really is about giving families a strong foundation from the beginning. And lastly, we have capacity building. With $772,777 expended, the capacity building focuses on creating a robust provider system. There is no way that services can be provided if our provider system is not robust and ready to be accountable for each and every taxpayer dollar. This involves community education, expanding professional skills, and equipping organizations with the necessary tools to deliver high-quality services. These capacity building funds underlie our commitment to building a thriving community by supporting every layer, from families to educational readiness and youth success. Next slide. So let me pause here for a quick minute and talk about RBA. This is at the core of our service design model to move from number of outputs to achieving outcomes. Leon County citizens approved the establishment of CSC Leon to truly help change this community. As such, we recognize that even with approximately $9 million in yearly revenue, CSC Leon can only respond to a small fraction of the greater need in our county. As such, we have adopted a results-based accountability framework to plan our council's investments. RBA is a relatively new concept to our provider and nonprofit organizations, but we know that it is the best method by which we move from merely reporting outcomes, as we did in our first 2 years, to achieving outputs in our first 2 years to achieving desired outcomes, as we have been doing moving forward. In essence, RBA asks 3 questions. First, how much did you do? Second, how well did you do it? And third, is anyone who was in your program receiving assistance better than they were before then? Again, 3 questions. This RBA is the basis for everything we do. How much did you do? How well did you do it? And are your participants better off now than they were before being in your program? Next slide. So let's talk about who we served. The figure of 126,399 participants reflects the cumulative reach of CSC Leon funded programs over multiple years, fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 2024. Early data collections prior to 2023 did not include personally identifiable information, better known as PII, meaning some families may be counted more than once. So yes, we did have families that were counted more than once. The family could receive a service in totality, and then each of the children could have received services. So they would have been counted for each service, not just as a family. This was an expected occurrence as families in need often access multiple services or return to trusted providers with whom they've developed a rapport. Even with that likelihood, the number underscores the depth of community engagement and the growing demand for coordinated, high-quality supports for children and families in Leon County. Now, a significant portion of those we serve during this time period, about 70%, reside in the targeted zip codes of 32303 and 32304. We know that there is a lot of need, and there were lots of residents, 70% from those zip codes, that participated in services during this time. It demonstrates our commitment to addressing the specific needs and challenges in these areas and ensuring that resources are allocated where they are most needed. Now, as we continue, we'll delve deeper into the demographics and specific groups we've supported. But for now, let's just take a moment and appreciate the impact of our efforts as we serve the community during this time. 399,000 services were provided during that period.
Say that again.
126,399 services were provided to children, youth, and families during that 4-year period.
You
From
may
June.
applaud.
With 70% of them residing in 03 and 04, if I may add. Next slide. So let's talk about who we served. This helps us to understand the impact of our programs and tailor our services effectively. So first, let's look at age. We served a diverse age range, from children and youth, age 0 to 17, to adults and seniors. So the question comes, why adults and seniors? Well, children do not manage themselves. I'm going to say that again. Children do not manage themselves. It is about a 2-generation approach, and anyone in the nonprofit or human service community will tell you, if you only focus on the child, you are only going to get outputs. You are not going to get the results that are needed to move the needle. Caregivers are essential to the future success of our children. In fact, many of our programs only enroll the primary caregiver while serving the whole family. Economically, a significant portion of those we serve, 72%, earn less than $45,000 annually, indicating a focus on families with financial constraints, known as the ALICE population, and below. Additionally, addressing housing insecurity, 18% of our constituents are homeless or in temporary or transitional housing. This highlights the urgent need for robust support systems and targeted interventions. Next slide. So now let's show you how we got here. The next few slides will explore the handout made available for all of you, linked in the online version of the impact report. So that would be this handout if we were able to make copies, and it's also on our website. Council members, you have it on your dais. This document shows a column for each investment approved by the council, to whom the funds were awarded, and who were served. Our very first investment, summer 22, focused only on outputs, and it represents 93% of the numbers we just discussed. So when you think about the 126,000 services provided to children, youth, and families, 93% of that was done during our very first funding cycle, summer 22. Now, why is that? Our goal was to provide GAP services to as many families as possible, as quickly as possible, post-COVID. If you remember, the children were getting ready to be let out for the summer after having worn masks all day and hybrid learning. Parents were being called back to work. And so this council made the decision to fund fast and furiously to help those families in this time. This was the only procurement in our short history that did not follow rigorous standards in its design. Rather, impact was measured sheerly by the numbers served. So you can see there in the slide, kindergarten readiness, youth success, family support to the tune of 1.5 million. The targeted zip codes there, and you'll see the total 117,509. And the organizations with whom we partnered to get those children and families into services post-COVID. Next slide. The next summer, summer 23, our numbers went down drastically, as did our focus. Instead of allowing funded entities to tell us what they were going to do using RBA, results-based accountability, the council honed in on two areas, summer enrichment and summer feeding only. Service providers went from 29 to 17, and the quality of programming increased. Why, you ask? I'm glad you asked. We implemented service standards, reporting standards, and evaluation tools. So as you can see, that summer we didn't do kindergarten readiness. We focused more on youth success and family support to the tune of 1.593044 million. The targeted zip codes there for a total of 973 children served, individual children served, and then the youth success and family supports community investment partners that receive that funding. Next slide. At the same time, we released our first long-term investments in family strengthening programs. That included legal services, after-hours counseling for mothers and women in crisis, a 24/7 dads program, and 3 youth mental health programs. These contracts were issued for just over 2 years, so the providers had just over 2 years of an initial contract, and it represented the first time we required personally identifying information for each participant in these funded programs. This data collection, in addition to service and reporting standards, has been our training ground on how important systematic data collection is to telling the story of how our taxpayer dollars are being put to work. And as we promised, we will use that data to determine if and when we continue investments. Our service procurement process is competitive and rigorous. I think anyone in the audience who has been funded by us will agree with us on that. And it is so that our funded programs achieve stated outcomes, as they must do in order to be continued, and in addition to determining if a need continues to be funded. needs to continue to be funded. Data collection is done in partnership with the programs, and the CSC Leon program performance team provides support at every step along the way. And I'd like to pause and ask that team to stand again. They're here somewhere, the performance team. Amy, Joe, Brandy, Dina, Jacinta is out sick today. They work tirelessly with our programs as we are all learning. So please give them a hand.
Great.
So under family strengthening, you'll see that we had 2 focus areas: youth success, family support, 1.25 million, and a total of 824 participants during that 2 and some change year period. Next slide. Youth mentoring. So we invested in year-round youth mentoring at the same time as the previous family strengthening investments. Same thing for these programs. Data collection was required as very specific evaluation tools and service standards were required. Programs learned quickly that we are investing in outcomes and not just small grants to support program operations. The only way to see change occur is to fully fund robust programs that have what they need to function while also holding them accountable to their own logic models for achieving the outcomes that we all want. So in youth mentoring, 957,000, and we assisted 868 students. Next slide. Holly, am I on 11? SIPs? Awesome. So the council recognized that not all nonprofits have the internal organizational structures that they need to be successful. But often it is these organizations that have the unique ability to meet the families who have, quote, fallen through the cracks where they are. All of these organizations are small, sometimes 1 to 3 person operations with budgets of less than $100,000, but they have a passion for service and great ideas on how to improve the lives of people in the communities they serve. What they don't all have are skills to be competitive against the larger nonprofits and organizations with whom they share space and many times compete. The SIPS initiative, Small Investments for Program Success, says that the council believes there is a need for these smaller programs and that we want to provide training and resources to help them grow. For some, the SIPS investment was seed money to really kickstart their programs. We had a SIPS program that started with SIPS and is now a statewide contractor in Voc Rehab. As you can see from the numbers, we almost had a repeat from our first summer lessons outputs. So we've reimagined how the program looks this year with fewer priorities and higher reporting expectations. So you can see we invested about 346,000 in SIPs between 23 and 24, but we assisted 3,500 persons in those targeted zip codes and others. So it has been wildly successful. It's been reimagined to a SIPS 1.0 and a SIPS 2.0, and some of the SIPS 2.0 recipients I see in the audience here.
Mrs. Green, if I may, I think SIPS is enormously important. We realize that there are human service providers oftentimes who are in neighborhoods that we serve. Because of that cultural connection, being able to provide service and being able to optimize the provision of those services by making these types of investments, we have seen how those not-for-profits have been able to grow and expand their services and to be able to speak most directly, particularly when some of them are also project-based, based upon what we know through our own surveys and studies, where there are targeted population, targeted services that are required, and sometimes our more conspicuous partners are already providing services in other parts, but here now we're now equipping and empowering new faces and new familiar partners. And I am very, very proud of the innovation that has gone into this program now with 1.1 and 2.0. again, helping our neighbors to serve our neighbors. So congratulations on the information you have shared there.
Thank you, and congratulations to the recipients. We are excited about 1.0 and 2.0 because it allows a smaller organization to be in 1.0 up to 2 times, then graduate to 2.0. And after 2.0, they should be ready to not only look at our funding, but look at funding on a larger scale. So thank you so much for that, Chair.
I can imagine the technical assistance has been important
Absolutely.
because that's also a part of it. We not only give them the money, but then we provide the technical assistance that they require to help them to grow and expand
Absolutely.
expand their not-for-profit.
Yes, absolutely. And we do that technical assistance in partnership not only with UPHS, but also with Leon County, because we stay connected with Leon County, City of Tallahassee, UPHS regarding our procurements, what is needed, because we're all in this together. As I said earlier, $9 million sounds like a lot of money, but it does not go very far when you look at what the need is. So it's important for us to be in concert so that we are working as a braiding and blending structure rather than a full funding entity. Next slide, please. So, family resource centers. Now, while this should technically be classified under family strengthening, it's such a unique service model that it has its own category. So, officially launched in 2024, by the time this impact was penned, we only had data from one center, and that's the one at Cross Creek. What these service numbers do not include are the hundreds of community members engaged in this FRC process. The 91 that you see here only represents those primary caregivers who enrolled in services after the FRC at Cross Creek opened in August of last year. So it only reflects about 5 months of service provision. As you know, we now have a center in at Fort Braden, which is out in that area, and are looking at where the third center will go. We do believe that these can be transformative, and we are looking forward to working with community partners to ensure that we are providing services to families where they are and listening to families regarding what they need. Next slide. Now, last summer was a little different. In addition to our summer-only enrichment programs, we added 2 additional programs. One, a scholarship for children with special needs so families could access much-needed respite care for their children, and their children could make desired connections with other children with special needs during the summer at select camps. The second program we added was a high school student internship program modeled after the successful programs hosted by the City of Tallahassee and Leon County, but working in partnership with local businesses. So you had the county with a longstanding program, you had the city with a longstanding program. What about the many businesses in town and giving our youth opportunities to see even more career paths for them? For all 3 of these programs, we collected specific information about the participants, how many direct services each received, and in what way they were made better from participating in the programs. So you can see here that information on summer 2024 with those 3 programs to the tune of 1.9 million and more than 1,000 participants. Next slide. So kindergarten readiness remains a top priority for this. Yes.
What year is this now for our internship program?
We finished year 2 this past summer, so we are already embarking on year 3. We are also significant partners with Worlds of Work, North Florida Worlds of Work, and the Talent Development Council, and they have been awesome in helping to support our youth. Many of our youth and families were unbanked And so we have a partnership with Loyalty Credit Union that comes in and does financial literacy, not only with them during an orientation period, but also with them with some of our individual programs. So it has been hugely successful. And the first year we hosted, I think, 41. This year we hosted 39. And those are individual businesses that have come along as well. So when we talk about kindergarten readiness, it remains a top priority for the council. However, the state of Florida has also made significant early childhood investments in recent years, and CSC Leon is prohibited by statute from supplanting existing funding. So as a result, our challenge has been identifying ways to make a measurable impact in this space without duplicating what already is funded. As such, we continue to explore innovative, value-added strategies that strengthen the continuum of early learning supports. The three initiatives we've launched are Rebound and Recovery, partnering with the Early Learning Coalition for the On-Ramp program, and the Perinatal Navigator program, or the COAST program, in partnership with Healthy Start. These reflect an intentional approach by addressing the social, emotional, and developmental factors that most influence school readiness and long-term success. So you can see there the financial investments in these areas. And so far, again, up through December 24, the number of students that have been impacted. And we'll get into some of the gains here shortly. Next slide. Okay, so that covers who we served, but let's talk about what the impact has been. Remember, we're moving from outputs to outcomes, and we want to know that our participants are better now by having participated in our funding programs. So starting with prenatal care and support, the COAST Perinatal Navigator program not just enrolled, but ensured 130 of pregnant women receive the care they need to bring healthy new lives into the world in just 3 months. Next month, we will present data from their first full year, and that will be on November 12th at a council workshop. Through our partnership with the Early Learning Coalition of the Big Bend, we provided tuition stipends to 338 ALICE children, helping them transition into subsidized childcare. This support actually triggered a statewide policy change to expand eligibility for school readiness moving forward. For youth success, we served 6,868 students in Leon County across 3 years and in 80 programs. 41 of those were placed in 30 local businesses for a hands-on summer job experience. Under family well-being, 686 families benefited from direct services, not including the families from summer 2022. We also confirmed that we distributed greater than 60,000 meals between summer 22, summer 23, and our SIPS program. This does not include the meals that were served during our summer enrichment programs, as those programs were required to serve at least 2 meals and a snack. However, it's not just about numbers, it's about nourishing our community and providing stability. So we talked about officially opening the first Family Resource Center at Cross Creek under the management of Children's Home Society of Florida. This center has already proven itself a beacon of support for many families and a shining example of what an FRC can be to not only the neighborhood here in Leon County, but quite frankly, across the state. Next slide. Knowing who we serve, the services provided, and how many participants we serve isn't enough. We want to answer that third question in results-based accountability. Is anyone better for having been involved in our funded programs? So here you will see some of the data that talks about the improvements. For kindergarten readiness, thanks to the first year report from Rebound and Recovery, we know that an impressive 88% of the 862 pre-K students served made a measurable gain in specific learning skills as measured by the school administered teaching strategies goal. Let me say that again. 88% of the children that participated in Rebound and Recovery in pre-K in Leon County got measurable gains in specific learning skills as measured not by us, but by the school administered teaching strategies goal. In addition, these same students demonstrated a 123% increase in average scores on the behavioral identification pre and post assessment administered by Florida State University's Stoops Center for Children, Families, and Communities. They are the implementer of the Rebound and Recovery program. Under youth success, 88% of these students served during summer 24 demonstrated domain-specific learning gains. Also, between August 23 and December 24, 72% of students in our youth mentoring and family strengthening programs improved their social functioning as measured on the pre and post child youth resiliency measure, which is a validated 17-item questionnaire administered at the beginning of the program and then again 3 to 6 months later. In terms of family well-being, 70% of families in specific family strengthening programs, including those enrolled at the Cross Creek FRC, enhanced their self-resiliency as measured by either the Protective Factors Survey or the Adult Resiliency Measure, while 94% report increased access to community assistance programs. So if I take you back to our needs assessment, we knew that there were programs out there, but many of the citizens said, we don't know about the programs and we don't know how to connect to the programs. So this is proof positive that the FRC, to the tune of 94%, is able to connect their families with services that are in our community. Overall, these improvements reflect the collective effort of everyone involved. It's clear that our programs are making a tangible difference in the lives of children, youth, and families. And this truly is just the beginning. So when we talk about capacity building efforts, let's highlight some key initiatives that have strengthened our support system for children and families in the community. First, we've conducted now more than 22 local trainings with providers. These sessions are critical and crucial for empowering our partners with the skills and knowledge necessary to deliver high-quality programs. Additionally, we've held 14 family listening sessions or focus groups, the gatherings that allow us to hear directly from the families we serve, ensuring our programs are aligned with their needs and expectations. This dialogue is vital for our continuous improvement and something we plan to do each and every year as time and resources allow. Our team also facilitated 46 individualized coaching sessions, tailoring support to meet specific needs and enhance professional development before we even launch the latest rounds of our SIPS program. These personalized interactions help build the expertise required for sustainable impact. Finally, and maybe most importantly, we launched and are actively improving our Services and Activities Management Information System, also known as SAMIS. This is truly a milestone in improving our data management and accountability across all programs. Together, these efforts are shaping a more robust and effective support network for our community. Next slide. Now, our journey with CSC Leon has been nothing short of transformative, and I started in January of 22, and I feel like I've been here 10 years. And I'm saying that because I feel like we have done 10 years of work in 4 years. It really is nothing short of transformative. It may seem like we've been here for a long time, but it really has relatively been short. As such, we felt it was important to include a timeline in our impact report to remind us how far we have come, and frankly, how much further we really have to go. We want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of the journey because it truly is a marathon and not a sprint. Next slide. Now, as we explore results-based accountability, we discussed at the beginning as a simple common sense framework to connect local data to population and then work backwards to determine the strategies and hold organizations accountable for achieving their goals. We do this with the theory of change. It informs everything that we do. We start every training with the theory of change. We start strategic planning with the theory of change because it is how we are going to achieve the difference for our children, youth, and families in our community. It helps us regularly track population level data indicators to determine if we're doing a good job. Next slide. So we first reported on a select group of outcomes for each of our priority areas in the first needs assessment, and we'll continue to update these and others every year. We do not believe that our efforts have caused any of the trends noted in the impact report, but could be correlated. So when you see improvements or when you see decreases, it's not specifically impacted by our programs, but our programs definitely correlate to some of the improvements that you've seen. More importantly, it's the role of data to inform where the council makes its investments based on real numbers and community feedback. In addition, during our upcoming strategic planning sessions, we will dive deeper into each of these, revealing neighborhood and school differences to help us target and measure our efforts moving into the next phase of service delivery. Next slide. So there you see kind of some of those community indicators, and then in the next slide as well. And again, this will be available to the public on our website. So in the past 3 years, CSC Leon has transformed from a new entity into a results-driven organization focused on creating meaningful change for children and families. One of our key lessons is the power of strategic collaboration. We found that impactful outcomes are achieved when organizations work together, sharing data and aligning goals. Another critical insight is the value of continuous learning. By providing technical assistance and promoting peer learning, CSC Leon has helped many smaller organizations enhance their capacity and program quality. This adaptive strategy ensures we're always improving and ready to meet future challenges. Furthermore, investing early in programs like the Perinatal Navigator and Trauma-Informed Pre-K supports has shown us the transformative power of upstream investments. These efforts are helping to shift development paths positively, setting children up for long-term success. And finally, we've embraced a shift from merely counting the numbers served to asking, are the people we serve better? Has the program in which they were involved made their life, their world better? This question drives our commitment to impactful service delivery and accountability. As we move forward, let's continue investing in kids and strengthening families, always guided by the needs of our community. And I want to thank everyone for being on this journey with us. With that, this last slide is the incredible network of our partners that are community investment partners, and they make the work that we fund possible. It's a highlight of the diverse group of organizations, large and small, all of which bring unique strengths to our collective mission. And so with that, I am pleased to have completed this public presentation of our impact report. Moving forward, this will be done on a yearly basis so that you can see over time how the investments have affected our community. And with that, before we transition into our RFP presentation, I yield back to Chair Jones and the council for any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Green, for a fantastic report. Council members?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To our Executive Director, Ms. Green, I'll just be very brief, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you and your staff for not only for your presentation, for the fact that you all have gathered the documentation and presented it to us and to the community, because one of the primary reasons for the Children's Services Council, of course, is to assist our children, but from a measurement standpoint, we want to make sure that the needle is moving for our children in a positive direction. We know, those of us that have worked intricately with the organization, we see that needle moving, but I think it's important for our citizens to know that we are seeing a positive impact in our schools, in kindergartens, with our families that the Children's Services Council is making. And then finally, I certainly, Madam Executive Director, just want to thank and compliment all of our community investment partners. They're out there in the trenches doing the work. And I compliment them also because before the Children's Services Council was envisioned, before it was passed overwhelmingly by the taxpayers, they were there providing those services. And I'm just proud that we are able, as a council, apologize for my voice, but we are able, as a council, to partner with all of our community partners. And we see the positive work that you all are doing, that you have done. And we not only see it from a subjective standpoint, but we have objective measures to show that you all are doing a great job. And without the partnership with you all, we wouldn't see the positive numbers that we have. So thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you, Madam Executive Director, and especially those with the council that go out and work with our partners and get the data and get the statistics so that we know that we have great numbers to present to our citizens. So thank you again, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Executive Director.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will echo many of the things that Commissioner Cummings just said, with that emphasis on the partners in the community that sort of took the direction that the council gave them, and I think are doing everything in their power to try to implement what our desire was. I don't know that I am comfortable that the needle is moving, period, hard stop. I don't think it's moving backwards. I intuitively, I feel like things are getting better, but I don't know that there's any data. And this is impressive, Sika, I'm not trying to discount it, but I don't know that the data, and I think your comments were fair, it may have had something to do with it. But we are not at the point where we can say that the taxpayers have spent an awful lot of money and we're really moving the needle. And I point this out not to be critical of anything the CSC is doing. I'm on it and my voice is heard and I appreciate that. I'm saying this mostly to tell the community, we don't know yet, but we are beginning to gather the data and we'll be able to show progress or not as much in the not too distant future. There is, and I think rightfully so, there was a question regarding the number of services that were provided versus the number of children and members of their family that we were helping. Sika, if I'm not wrong, there were somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5,000 individuals who have been served by the Children's Services Council. Is that number correct?
Probably closer to 6,800. maybe.
Okay, so let's say 7,000, just because I'm better at rounding up. We'll say 7,000 individuals have been served. So essentially, when I look at the 126 or 127,000, we'll round that up. What I should do is divide by 7 and say to myself, all right, so the 7,000 individuals are taking advantage of somewhere in the neighborhood to, 18, 19, just trying to do the math real quickly in my head, services per person. And again, the number is important. Both numbers are important. I want to be clear that we are not serving 126,000 people, but we have delivered on 126,000 services to roughly 7,000 people. And of those 7,000 people, based on the numbers in this report, and I have no reason to believe otherwise, 70% of those live in the zip codes 32303 and 32304. The zip codes that are seen as the most economically struggling zip codes in our community.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's important. One, we haven't served 126,000 people. We have delivered 126,000 services, and that number only continues to increase. Our goal is to make a difference in the community where there were gaps. And those gaps fall into zip codes 32303 and 23304. And candidly, 32310, there's several. I have recently heard that that there are members of the community that don't believe that we are focused in enough on the communities of need. And I think that's inaccurate. And I have to, having sat through a couple of community meetings, I have to go on record as saying, I don't believe that. There's nothing in anything that I've ever seen, from a financial report to a service delivery report based on geographical breakdown in this community, that would suggest that we are not focused where the needs are greatest. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Ms. Fishers? Well, before we make our transition, allow me to provide my unique perspective as a member of the Leon County School Board, whose entire school district is comprised of Title I schools. And my school district is represented in the numbers and the zip codes that you've identified. When I was elected 7 years ago, the large share of the schools in my district were D's, F's, and C's, and a great number of our Title I schools were in differentiated accountability, which meant that because they had not been able to consistently meet the score, there were additional resources that were brought in from the state. And there were a number of those schools, not just in my district, but also in District 5, where School Board Member Bowen was, and also within the school board district represented by Roseanne Wood. Well, now we no longer have any schools in differentiated accountability anymore. And so if we want to describe what success can look like, the school district, for one, will certainly admit that our investments in kindergarten readiness, family sustainability, and the additional services made available by these community investment partners, money is made available through our investment, through our RFP process, I think we can say that it is those companion services that I like to describe as that safety net that captures our most vulnerable student populations have been well served. And we're starting to see that because these investments have also lent themselves to greater cognitive development. And because of these resource partners, the school day or the learning day increases beyond the school bell. And I think that we can count on that to be an accurate representation of what we see as the needle moving. Now, not to wax, everybody wants to use Martin Luther King as convenient, but when we talk about the arc of the universe, but it bends toward justice, well, it also bends towards an equitable representation of our children being prepared to learn by a variety of partners, as goes the family, as you've described, goes children. So as we're able to make these intentional investments, young people who are now getting internships, I can tell you, I go to every graduation. I ask a kid what's next, and you'd be surprised, regrettably, how many of them shrug their shoulders. Here now with an internship program, we're now helping to prepare our older children on the spectrum, right, to be able to be prepared to be prepared to either go to college or go into careers. So all of these investments these last 4 years, we may see the translation found not just in the data that we collect, but the data from those anchor institutions in our community that are also impacted by that investment. And so I think the needle, it's moving, but it's moving slowly. But that means you put your foot on the gas and continue to move forward. Now, I remember, that's going to be my last comment before I turn it over to you. When I first got elected, I had to make the translation from being a candidate to being elected. When I was a candidate, I had nothing good to say about Leon County schools because I was a candidate. And as a candidate, I found fault in everything that they did. Then, Mrs. Cummings, your sorority sister, the dean of the school board, Miss Joy Bowen, took me aside. She says, now, baby, this baby that you talking about on the dais, that's your baby. And no mama and no daddy calls their baby ugly. Because if they do, that's your ugly baby. So as I've made the translation from candidate to elected, I feel the same way about the Children's Services Council. I think I'm not an inaugural member like Ms. McFadden and Commissioner Cummings and Commissioner Mitchell have been, but I've been here some 6 months in. And so those numbers that you share, those metrics and the impact, I have been involved and cast a vote on nearly every decision that we have made. So that means that the impact report is my beautiful baby. And I think I can buy my baby some more shoes, my baby some more dresses, some more bowerettes and bobby socks to make my baby even more beautiful. And that is what we will continue to do as we continue to track the data and the metrics and what we know is our continued impact. So I want to thank you for sharing our beautiful baby with the world today. All right. Thank you so very much. Any final comments? We'll now move to our presentation. We're very happy to have our public here with us today. Bobby socks and bowerettes.
I see fault in three boys, so
I'm sorry, some penny loafers and some bow ties.
That's beautiful.
But I'm very, very happy to see so many people from our public, already existing partners and future partners who are here with us today, our public. All of you constitute as taxpayers in our local community. You too are seen in our beautiful baby because of your continued commitment. And like I like to say at Bethel AME Church, the best is yet to come for us. So we're happy to have you. And now we'll turn it back over to our competent director, Ms. Sika Rose Green.
Thank you, Chair Jones. And as a girl who had a younger sister and a mother who believed in debutantes, the bows, and the bobby socks, that was my life. So I definitely appreciate that. And thank you, council members, for your comments, because you've been very intentional about the funding that you've approved. Where you needed to be critical, you were critical. Where you've needed to support, you did. So I think, to Chair Jones's point, it definitely is our baby, and our team is going to continue working as hard as we can to make sure that baby gets to the age of consent and chooses college or career. How about that? So with that, as we talk about RBA and the results-based accountability and looking at the needs assessment and those things, if you remember, this council approved year-round out-of-school time and youth development programming that is currently underway. Some of the programs started in the summer and have now moved into after school. Some of them were summer only. And I remember Mr. Mitchell saying, I do not want us to not do summer only, because there are children who just need that. And so we've done that. So with that expectation, it's time now to look at that RFP again, so that we will have programming that starts June 1st and runs through the summer, as well as those that will run through the next academic year.
If I may also ask, as we prepare for this RFP, is there an instrument or a part of that application where providers who are awarded the grant required to provide data about where the families live, like which zip code, so that we can capture that information and know that across the expanse of those providers that they're serving children in targeted groups, that we can able to I guess do an overlay of where that impact is occurring?
Yes, so there is a requirement for that. There are also, I think, bonus points depending on. It's the requirement. That was early on, we did bonus points. But yes, so there is a requirement. With SAMUS, we capture all of that information. And that is a requirement of the program to get those consents from the parents. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly McPhail, who is in her role as the Special Projects Director. She serves as the procurement manager. Let me remind our providers, organizations, and public that when we provide this information today, in accordance with the timeline, we will release the RFP first thing in the morning. When that RFP is released, we are in the cone of silence. So no one intending to apply for this RFP, or helping someone to apply for this RFP, or sitting in the room with someone who applies for this RFP should contact staff, council members, or anyone involved in this process other than Holly McPhail, and she will go through that information. While this is a public presentation, there will be a real informational session for any organizations that are interested in applying for the RFP, as well as some other sessions on budgeting and completing the application throughout the process. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. McPhail.
Thank you. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that last week, America After 3 p.m. released its 5th edition of the national report that looks at the need and the demand for after-school services and programs. And later this week, on Thursday, October 23rd, is the National Lights On After School campaign. And we have lots of local programs who have activities that are planned around that. And indeed, even members of our funded programs and members of our team will be traveling down to the Florida After School Conference to celebrate that statewide, as well as acquire different skills and make those better connections. So I just want to kind of start by leading with that information. America After 3 p.m. was able to dive into the specifics in Florida and have discovered that while about 2 million kids are actively engaged in after school programs, the number is now 3 out of 4 children are waiting for a spot. That means that they can't get in. There is an overwhelming demand for affordable, accessible, and well, I should start with available, accessible, and we know that those mean different things to different families, and affordable out of school time opportunities. So that is truly what this RFP is responding to. Um, uh, National research knows that or has proven that out of school time programs are a strategy that is correlated as a causation, not just a correlation for this one, with youth development and well-being. They have been tracked to improve social emotional skills, mitigate summer learning loss, as well as increase academic achievement and reduce health disparities. So that is kind of the driving force behind this particular RFP. This is our we're going into our fourth summer for out of school time like programs, the third that's been dedicated. And as our programs know, each year we require more. We kind of say that we raise the bar. We didn't start up here because the intention was maybe, or the thought was that many of the programs weren't prepared to be able to respond to that level of rigor. So each year, summer after summer, we've increased it and we're doing it again. So for the programs that are here that are listening, it will be an extra layer of accountability up front. To the chair's point, being able to identify percentage-wise where you intend to serve so that our evaluation panel will be able to not only do that overlay of services where they're going to come from, but to be able to make recommendations to the council so that we get the highest quality programs serving the most needed areas. Funding is available in two separate tracks. There will be two separate applications, those that are applying for a year-round program and those that are applying for summer only. No, programs cannot apply for both, and no, you cannot serve as a fiscal sponsor for one agency and apply as well as for yourself. So if you plan to have multiple programs, one that maybe is summer only, you'll have to weave that all together in your application. The quality expectations that we're going to be looking for are intentional curriculum used with defined objectives. It has to be relevant to your target population. And this is not based on the neighborhood, but rather the ages that you serve. The curriculum that you choose to use with a middle school group of students should look different from a curriculum that you're using with a K through 2 population. In addition, has to have a focus on resiliency and character development and at least one, but no more than two enrichment domains. Many times we have had programs say we want to do it all, and we're having them really hone in and focus on what they're trying to do. In the informational session programs, we'll hear that depending upon your age range and who you plan to serve, that you'll get a bonus point for the enrichment domain that you are looking to influence. So for example, if you are going to be serving K through 2 and you're using a literacy curriculum enhancement or enrichment component, that will meet with a bonus point. If you are serving our middle school children and you lean into the career and technical education, then you'll have an opportunity again for that bonus point. This is to specifically see the results that we're looking for in those testing outcomes come the end of the year. The second quality expectation is around qualified and supported staff. They will be required to do a robust staffing plan with role-specific positions and show their required training plan for each of them. So that means that we are funding very specific positions. They will have to meet them and provide that organizational chart in a very detailed manner. The staffing plan is a whole separate component that they will need to respond to. That staffing plan should also reflect adult or youth to adult ratios. I really should flip that around and say adult to youth ratios. We know that the Department of Children and Families and even 21st century programs say a 1 to 20 is fine. What we have found is that that is too much to see the types of outcomes that we actually want to see. So we are calling for the younger kids, a 1 to 10. ratio for our older elementary, 1 to 13, which is what their programs are doing right now. But for those middle school kids going up to a 1 to 15 is acceptable. Again, we're looking for programs who know the target that they're serving and not just a broad brush serving anyone and everyone. Our next quality expectation is around duration and dosage. So this is one of probably the harder expectations to meet. We're not just funding a 2-week summer camp. That's not what we're looking to do. We want to not only recruit families to be engaged in at least 6 weeks over the summer, but then to have programs retain them into the fall and into their after school programs. For our year-round programs, that means 780 hours is what we're looking for them to be providing direct services to families. That breaks out to about 240, not about, a minimum of 240 hours during the summer across a minimum of at least 6 weeks. And then 540 hours of direct service provision during the school year. Programs get creative with that because that's where they're required to have those constant touches with the families so that we can ensure that the students are getting the supports they need. We also know that overcoming barriers like hunger and transportation makes a quality program. So nutritional and transportation supports are required. Director Green mentioned this earlier. For our summer programs, it's 2 meals during the summer. For our after school programs, it's an actual meal, not just snacks. And if the programs are not co-located within a school, to be able to address that transportation barrier. Programs got really creative with that this year, and we will be providing additional funds to respond to these 2 direct needs for nutritional and transportation supports. And finally, but certainly not least, is youth-centered and engaging activities. Um, After school and out of school times should not look like school. That's why kids keep coming back. So we will be looking for a very detailed curriculum using structured activities that show how different it is from schools, and it will be represented for at least 40% of the time in that structured activities. We also will require parent engagement. So whether that is weekly communication or some sort of family event every term, that's a requirement, as well as having a mechanism to provide referrals to other community supports. For those that are listening, we have 2 family resource centers in full operation right now and teams that are prepared to accept families and help them do that navigation process if your individual organization is not equipped to do that. The Cross Creek Family Resource Center and the Fort Braden Family Resource Center have pretty spectacular teams. We're dedicated to helping families navigate the system of care and connect to services. And so any of our proposals that we receive, we're looking for those connections specifically. Now, this is not a quality expectation, but a service expectation. This goes directly to Chair Jones's point or question. Service expectation is that they have to serve and retain unduplicated youth in grades K through 8, prioritizing our 5 target zip codes. We talked a lot about 32303 and 32304, but we also look at 32301, 05, and 10. So the expectation is that a minimum of 60% of your service population comes from there. What we have discovered, as we saw in our impact report, is that by and large, it's anywhere from 60 to 100% for the programs that we're funding. The average for this last summer was almost 80, but historically we're sitting around that 70% mark.
Excuse me, Miss McPhail. Tell me again about how we're quantifying, what are the provisions made for those targeted zip codes?
So in their application, they'll have to say, for easy math, I propose to serve 100 families. And they have to show of those 100 families where they're going to come from. So where are they targeting? And they'll have to break that percentage down based on the target zips versus other spaces. They'll show that in the application. Once they are awarded funding and enroll families, they collect the individual actual like physical addresses of all the families that we serve. And we have a mapping platform that can quite literally show the heat map of where all the families are residing that the families serve.
Not questioning the RFP, nor are we making any edits to it because we've already approved it by a motion of the council. What I am sensitive to is that although there may be places of greater density of poverty, like I tell my colleagues on the school board, Title I children are in all schools and in all neighborhoods. So yes, we are certainly specific in those, but I want our services to make certain that there's, not to be colloquial, but no child is left behind. We're not using that our public knows that we're not only serving those children in those areas, but all vulnerable children can be served through these programs and by the agencies whom we will provide funding.
Absolutely. And I believe that's why many of our programs, I think only 2 of them are at 100% of serving these populations, but they're based in their neighborhood programs. Another service expectation is that they're providing services at no cost to participants. So they're not charging fees. It's not a sliding scale fee. That's a conversation that many CSCs are having around the state right now. Be licensed or licensure exempt by the Florida Department of Children and Families. That helps our small team, our small but mighty team, not have to duplicate expectations that DCF is contractually required to do in ensuring that the programs that we are funding are meeting some of those minimum expectations. As we've said, they're going to be required to collect, store, and report participant and program level data, including the use of domain-specific assessment tools and surveys, including report card data, absentee data, and behavior data as reported to the schools, so that we can start to make those connections between the services that we're doing as push-in and support services and ancillary services to what's happening during the school day. That is the objective of being able to collect that. And then finally, to leverage partnerships to enhance program quality. When programs work together, they are stronger instead of competing against one another. So that is not just encouraged, it's actually now not just encouraged, not just incentivized, but it is required. So that's one of those step ups that we have done between each of our RFPs. Performance expectations of what we're looking for. 80% of the summer participants will transition into one of our school year programs. And for the summer only programs, of course, that wouldn't apply to them. This would be for those year round programs. Many of these are looking at those year round results. 90% will have fewer than 8 absences. 90% will have 0 discipline incidents during their most recent semester. 80% will have passing grades in all their core subjects. 80% are going to show gains on the CSC Leon approved enrichment assessment. 95% of participants who are at least 10 years of age or older will have no arrest or touches with that juvenile justice system after program enrollment. And then 90% of all parents and caregivers in all programs report overall satisfaction. So again, we are focused keenly on the outcomes that we want to achieve and designing programs so that they can achieve them successfully. I think this is probably the more important question that some people are asking, and that's about eligibility. We have once again focused on working with not-for-profit entities legally registered within the state of Florida. There are several great nonprofits who have approached us that have not quite legitimized in Florida because we're so close to that Georgia border, that Georgia and Alabama border. They do have to be registered in Florida and a registered nonprofit. They cannot be under the jurisdiction of the public school system. We've gotten several questions about programs and can we work through the school system to make an application? And the answer is no, because of our statutory requirements of not funding programs that are under the jurisdiction of the school system. For those religious programs, that's fine. They can certainly apply as long as there's not a religious and or worship requirement for program participation. Part of our fiscal solvency and organizational solvency check is that they cannot currently be involved in any legal action related to a similar service delivery, nor recently determined at fault in a similar case. They must also be able to demonstrate financial and organizational stability and the ability to manage the investment should they be selected. So those that are looking through that RFP, pay close attention to those expectations. And the last piece of eligibility is their request cannot exceed 50% of their organization's current annual operating budget as issued and approved by their nonprofit board and signed off by their board chair. So that those are some of the requirements on eligibility. The timeline is, as Ms. Green said, we are releasing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'll provide the link to anyone that is looking for where they'll go first thing in the morning. We will host our in-person informational session at the CSC Administration Office on October 27th. And then you'll see here on the slide, which we'll post at the conclusion of today's meeting, the question and answer timeline for folks trying to ask very specific questions. Proposals are due January 9th. They will be required to participate in a mandatory in-person provider presentation the week of February 2nd. We will have an open meeting on February 19th to make award recommendations, and then that committee will present their recommendations to the general council at a public meeting on March 5th. I threw two more dates in there because anyone who receives funding will be required to participate in our Summer Camp and Family Services Expo. Many of the folks that are here right now participated last year. Thank you. You are also welcome back. It's not just exclusive to our programs, but we do require that those that receive funding actually have slots come to that event with the intent to enroll families in their summer programs. And the contract start date is June 1st. I want to also just point out some other dates that I think are maybe more important. Our former chair, Dr. Glenn, said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. We have created lots of proposal support opportunities, and I want to encourage everyone to take advantage of them. Not only because they're incentivized in terms of your proposal, but also because our team is sharing tools during those trainings that will help make writing your proposal easier. They're not going to be accessible just anywhere and everywhere. They're going to be at those trainings, tools developed by our performance partners team to help anyone who takes advantage of them be more successful. We will not only have our informational session on October 27th, the more formal one, but we'll do a tutorial of the portal because we know that sometimes technology can be a barrier. So we'll do a dedicated training on how to use the portal to submit your application. And then we're going to do a program design, site and staffing workshop and a budget planning workshop split into the two specific tracks. So if you know that you're planning on just doing a summer only proposal, you don't necessarily have to sit through the questions of our year-round applicants and vice versa. We'll also have open office hours for that week leading up to when the proposal is due, because that's usually when the folks encounter the technology issues. So we'll have those posted that anyone can come to access support services. And with that, that's the link. It will be on our homepage. It'll be on our public information page. It'll be on our announcements page. It'll be on all of our social media platforms. It will open tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Thank you so very much. Now, tell me the date for June 1st. What happens on June 1st?
June 1st is when actual services can commence. So that is in line. I believe it's a Monday this year. Last year, I think most of our service providers started service provision on either June 2nd or June 9th, depending upon when they start. But so that's the kind of a first official day. Are there any questions from?
This is a reimbursable program. I can imagine that our children are going to be out of school long before June 1st.
Usually, we have the ability,
Right?
well, the ability to contract May 1st so that they can do any on-ramp and get everything kind of together. There is also a percentage of funding that they will get at contract signing. And then after that advance, it's reimbursement.
All right. That's what I was thinking about, the translation from end of school to when we can start talking about providing services, because we don't want, there's that downtime, that gap time. Okay, thank you.
In addition, if I may,
Yes,
the six programs that are currently providing year-round services, they can use this year's dollars to continue to fund through that gap in coverage. But for any new programs, it's as Director Green said.
Thank you. Who was first? Ms. Richards?
Yes.
We're doing that for year-round programs. Through year-round programs, they actually collect copies of the report cards. No, so it started this year. In fact, our programs, that's even some in the room, are collecting that right now since report cards just hit. So the first ones that they're reporting are happening quite literally right now. This and this is the same program. No. No, okay.
If I may, if I may, the council members scored SIPs, small investments for program success. This is separate, and there is an evaluation team made up of different disciplines of persons from the community. They will score them and rank them and provide a recommendation. That recommendation will be brought to the council and you all will make the final decision.
Mitchell.
Yeah, I would point out before I raise my questions that I think it's always good to have one member of the council who sits on the evaluation and negotiation team. It served me very well for the Family Resource Center. And Ms. Richards, I think you would be perfect at it. Now my questions. Well, really, I'm going to start by complimenting Sika, you and Holly and the team that put this together. One, we're in October. It's October and we were talking about summer camp. And I remember the first couple of years, I was like, ooh, I'm a parent, right? It's been a while since I've sent anybody to summer camp, but I needed to know early. And it seemed like we were just not being sensitive to the folks that we're trying to serve, because they need to serve their kids the same way anybody else does. And I applaud you for speeding this up and getting it out on the street and raising the public's awareness that these opportunities exist. That's fantastic. The second tip of the hat to you all is the financial accountability piece. I have for quite some time been very frustrated, and it is clear that that you heard my concerns and addressed it in this procurement. I think it's the right way of doing it. It's the fair way of doing it. It provides some funding up front, as long as you've got, you can't come in and, propose a $250,000 program and your annual budget the year before was, $11,000. It's like, well, I mean, good for you for getting in there, but it should be commensurate with your previous budget. So I appreciate that. Now my question, and this is really more, I think, for Superintendent Hannah, but this came up last year. There are some questions as to whether or not the summer only program and even the after school programs were able to utilize the public schools. And I don't know if there's been some consideration. Holly, you mentioned something in your presentation, maybe in the first third of it, where you mentioned, are they going to be using a public school? Have we talked to the school district? I mean, one, I think it's a tremendous use of taxpayer dollars of stretching it, but I don't manage those locations, and I certainly wouldn't want to speak for the superintendent whose job it is to do that. But if in fact we're going to be able to, that would be fantastic news, because that would mean more money going towards serving more kids and not paying overhead. Are we letting the provider community know that that is a possibility?
The provider community, if I may answer the question, would enter into their own negotiations with those sites directly, with those principals, and based upon what they may see as their own summer enrollment, if they have summer programs or if they're not. But not-for-profits are permitted per our policy to enter into agreements with our site administrators to use their facilities for the purposes of other extracurricular activities.
And in addition, in their application, that the programs will see that they'll actually have to provide a letter of, I'm going to call it like a letter of support that clarifies that relationship that's listed on letterhead. It's not just a text exchange or an email exchange between you and someone that you know there. They'll have to provide a formal letter, even if, whether that's at a school or at a church or wherever they're going to be hosting their event. If they don't own that building, they have to either show that lease agreement or that letter that says, should they be awarded, this is approved and these are the parameters of that agreement.
Mr. Jones, the term site administrator, would I recognize that more as principal?
The principal,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
So if I understand this, if I've got a program, not that I have a program, for my ugly kids, if I have a program and I am looking to serve a community that we have targeted, and I go to a principal of a elementary school or a middle school or a high school and say, I would like to utilize 2 of your classrooms and a small portion of your playground, let's say. And I will be serving kids in your community, in your school, who are not otherwise part of any other program. If the principal of that school sees it within his or her, the benefit of his or her school and community, they're allowed to do that, and the provider community understands that.
Yes, and to Chair Jones, the principals have their process that they go through with Leon County Schools to get whatever approval that is. We don't get into that.
Right.
But like Ms. McPhail was saying, they do have to provide specific documentation showing that that has been approved to help mitigate what was the concern last year.
Right. Because that was a concern last year.
Well, yeah, that's where that question is.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Richards. Yes.
And if I may, if I may very quickly, Ms. Richards, we have about 15 more minutes, because if we go over 5, we are going to need to be exiting the building. So we were scheduled to be 3 to 5.
They make that decision, but there's paperwork that they share with the district, but the decision is made on site. Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want to thank Holly for going through that RFBP process. And I guess Holly is one of our, what would we call it? Inaugural members that has worked with the Children's Services Council from the beginning. She has that institutional knowledge, but since 2020, if you want to call it that. I certainly appreciate you. But we started Am I correct? Last year, our first year-round program,
Correct.
can you, and we just have one year-round program? Is one?
We just have the one,
that
well,
one? Okay, and who?
so the mentoring that we had done under family strengthening,
Right.
it was a 2-year contract period and it was a year-round
That's
mentoring availability. And then you all approved, I think it's 4 programs that are going to be working in this next year. So I think I think they're all family strengthening. So I know Oasis is in there, but yes, those were year-round programs.
So the 1 year, who is it Brownsville that is the 1 year-round program right now?
Brownsville is one of them.
Is
Okay.
that, are they?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's 5.
yes,
Wait, oh,
but there's several.
I'm sorry, 5.
Mhm.
But, okay, 5 altogether.
Right, and those 5 started in the summer as well.
Right. So we won't have any stats or feedback or anything until what, after the end?
We
Inside.
could have some intermediate information, maybe January, February. I wouldn't want to do it on a quarterly basis because you don't have anything to compare. So we could look at something in maybe January, February after that second report card comes. Because what we would want to see is from report card 1, and that's just one of the measures. From report card 1 to report card 2, we want to see either the same or improve, not decline. So we can work with procurement as well as Ms. Snyder, who is over our programs, to see what information would be best to provide midterm. And then, of course, the next time it would be after their final reporting at the end of May. So they'll have reporting that'll be due in June from the year-round program.
Awesome. And I'm not sure if it's a way to do the comparison, but I know in the school system, there's always the concern of I don't know if the term is a drop off during the summer when the children aren't engaged. And of course, with the year-round program, we are engaging our children year-round. So I'm not sure if it's a way we can do some comparisons with the numbers or not, but I think it's a great concept. And it shows that we're concerned from a holistic standpoint with our children's learning and progression, even, during the summer months, just keep them engaged.
Well, if you remember, the reason why we transitioned from just the mentoring piece into this year round was because we wanted to be able to follow the child all the way, which is why there's that requirement of the 80% retainment for the year-round programs from the summer program transitioning into year-round. And so over time, we will be able to see how those children move because we're engaged with them every day, starting in the summer, basically, of course, except for the weekends. But yes, that was the thought process behind going just from mentoring into a year-round program.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, Holly. We appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If there's no other questions, any final comments from you, Ms. Green?
I would just like to say thank you to the council for just being supportive always and listening to how we're trying to go about infusing your desires into this results-based accountability measure. I'd also like to thank the providers, those that are still here and those who have left, because we don't do the services. The providers are the ones that do the services. And then lastly, any providers that are interested in this RFP, please participate in the information sessions. Our data or information shows that when an organization is not engaged with our capacity building and our information sessions, their scores are significantly lower than those that participate. So that would be the last thing. It's been my pleasure to present the report, and I look forward to doing this every year.
Mrs. Green, thank you very much. And I think that this approach for putting our RFPs before the public, going through the application process, its timeline, I think shows a greater sense of responsibility in that we want all of our respondents to come back with quality applications and that through this process, they're thereby more equipped and educated to provide us with the best responses possible. So thank you. And to your entire team, CSC Leon, thank you very much for a job well done. With that, we stand adjourned. Hey, buddy.